three of us are sort of advocates, or at least like the idea of Cornel West running as a Green. So let's move to this. He goes on the Stephen A. Smith show, and because Stephen A. Smith is a gazillionaire and has tons of thousands of people that watch him, and I'm sure that he probably has some sort of copyright stuff on his show. So I'm gonna play this clip where he doesn't say anything. It's just Dr. Cornel West talking. I think they show him on camera. He might say one word, but we should be pretty good on here. But let's listen to Dr. Cornel West. Actually, let me set this video up a little bit better. I think he says in this video, discusses the critiques of the Obama administration. So let's listen.
There were certain things he could have done that he didn't do. He didn't have to bail out Wall Street. We know Wall Street crimes took place of insider trading and market manipulation and predatory lending and fraudulent activity. He let them off the hook. He and Eric Holder. Eric comes out of Wall Street himself. He let them off the hook. He met with them and said, I stand between you and the pitchforks, but I will protect you. I don't believe a president, especially a black president, needs to say that to Wall Street. You need to say that to Main Street. So the homeowners were the one that had to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. Same is true with drones. You know, George Bush dropped 46 drones and killed innocent people. Barack Obama dropped 549.
Now, I must say, considering what he's saying, to us, we're like, oh, this is a regular Saturday afternoon of what we normally say or either hear. But I must say, this is on the Stephen A. Smith show. This is a corporate network. This is Disney. So this is locally, this will be on the network in my area will be 710 ESPN is the AM radio show. But this is a national show, the Stephen A. Smith show. It's sponsored by FanDuel. You can see it on the screen there. So you're talking about FanDuel is like a betting site. So you're talking about corporate money is providing the advertisement for this show, and you're talking about the stature of a person who is literally the top paid person in sports media is this person. This is a big deal for me to be able to, in my opinion, I should say, not for me, but in my opinion, that he's saying some of the things that he's saying in particular about the Obama administration, because there's a lot of people in the black community, a lot of people, not just in the black community, but progressive community, our community, in the liberal community, who never have heard sort of critiques articulated about Barack Obama. And they're like maybe blown away because Dr. Cornel West has commanded such respect from everyone. He's able to go on platforms like this and spread a message that just simply any other candidate is just cannot do. Other candidates are not being, he's being brought on this show, not because well, actually, this is Stephen A. Smith's regular show. He does a sports show, and now he's spun off and doing a regular show. But I see you shaking your head, Professor, and Michelle. I'll let you chime in. I'll go to Professor first. What say you about what Cornel West is doing? His ability to go on these networks, and he's going into. I just can't believe he's able to say these things on this network on ESPN like this. Go ahead.
I'm ecstatic, and I called it weeks ago. I said they are not going to be able. I'm not the only one who thinks this. They are not going to be able to ignore him, and that's why this candidacy has such amazing power. As you said, CJ, they respect him. I mean, this guy wrote Race Matters in the 90s. Mm-hmm. He's been in deep conversations on both sides. We've covered this on your show. He's been on Fox, he's been on CNN, and I guess MSNBC, but he can't be ignored. And excuse me, I think some people are going to have a hard time hearing some of this about Obama, because Obama is so well loved. And he's, here he is laying it out, talking about George Bush did drones and it was terrible. Obama did way more.
Right.
And I think that's important. And a side note on that, which I think really needs to be discussed more. When I hear liberals, vote blue no matter who, Democrats, talk about, well, Trump is racist, the Republicans are racist, Democrats are the the wall between the terrible racist Republicans. And I'm like, what about your foreign policy? What is the color and the geographical location of the people we always drop bombs on? So you can't have a policy in the United States where you're against racism and a foreign policy that is inherently racist and classist. And so there's Cornel West talking about it, which I think is just an amazing moment. There's a lot of people that are going to be confused because maybe they've seen him on CNN and liked him, and all of a sudden here he is saying this. So I think there's a tremendous power in that.
Absolutely. All right, so let's go to Michelle. I'm fixing a little glitch on my computer, so I'm going to turn my camera off, but I'm still here. So let's go to Michelle. What say you to the same sort of question? Now, you're a former Green official, but you're still part of the Green Party sort of movement. What do you think? I'm going to add a question for you. Same question that Anthony, but what do you think? Does he bring something unique or something you haven't seen that a candidate could possibly bring to the Green Party as a candidate, since you've been part of the Green Party for so long?
Yeah, so I support Cornel West's bid for election, and I hope he gets really far in this process. I would love to see him in office. And I still do have human real concerns about the ability of anybody to, it goes back to the comfort stuff, that I seem to harp on a lot lately. But I think what I love about Cornel West is he's open to having the conversations. And I think in this segment of the video earlier on, it talked about where he was saying he knows how to come to a conversation and listen to people. And I think that so much of the steady mainstream media diet that people have consumed over the years has hidden up so much truth of what our realities are, and because of that, until we start to unpack those partial truths that are very believable, because we don't want to believe our country is this horrible, awful kind of entity that it actually is. We don't see those gaps, and we believe Obama's doing great things. We believe the first Black president in the United States made great strides. Now, the area Obama did make great strides in during his pregnancy was around disability. And I think many people also do not know that. And then Biden has been recreating some of those policies and practices because we got disabled people employed by the federal government during the Obama administration. And that number has increased over time through the initiatives that have started around those time periods. There's still huge problems. Cornel West is very educated. He's very comfortable, to use my language, because I often forget that people that work even a full-time job, they're more well off than I ever have been, in my life. So my experience and the struggles within the Green Party include kind of that inclusion of disabled comrades, the disabled people in the party structure, that some of them are very much about disability rights. I think more of the exception, because I've gone to disability equity, and I want more than just an accommodation to put me at the table. I want to be welcome with my flaws and all, as I want for every human being in this country to be embraced as a a realistic person that we need at the table. We need to be informing our policies by the lived experience of the unhoused down the street. We need to be informed by the policies by this addict or that addict that didn't have adequate care or anything else. And I think Cornel West has the ability to bring those conversations into being. And I think that's where he holds his power. And that's where I support him. But within any structure, there are barriers, and those limitations of those structures are because of things like scarcity, of not having enough volunteers registered green to help support us on the ballot of every state that exists. There's, when you go to the vote blue, no matter who, kind of what Professor Zenkus was saying is, when you do that, who are you voting against? And I'll say that Biden's policies on the pandemic are almost worse than Trump's were for me as a disabled person. I will say that the lack of understanding of why I still need people to wear masks when they're out in public is huge, because nobody wants to put that piece of cloth on their face to protect those people that they're spewing their viruses to. Businesses are currently saying that we can have people that are currently sick come in and work to serve food in our restaurants. So how is all this? Yeah, that was on Disability Twitter today. So, where a worker had posted a comment about how her managers were hounding her to come in and weren't even giving her the grace of 5 days that is the current CDC recommendations. And these are happening in our grocery stores, in our restaurants, with teachers, with aides in the classroom, with all of these people. So vote blue means kill disabled people. Vote blue is a eugenicist movement that says seniors, our elders, and our disabled people aren't of value, do not contribute to our society because, again, of capitalism constructs. So with all of this, Cornel West gives me hope, but he also gives me great fear. We need people to register green so that we can get ballot access in all the states, because this is not really Cornel West's problem to solve. This is the people's problem to solve. And the Democrats are gunning 100% for Cornel West to not get ballot access in those states so that he doesn't have the opportunity to landslide victory in this country the way that we need him to do. And if people don't step up and do these things, no matter if you stay green or not, go register green today or tomorrow or Monday, whatever, whenever you can, register green to show your support of change. After the election, you can modify it. You can go back to being an independent. You can go back to other things. But until we have the people power behind us, the scarcity model wins, which means people are marginalized that need to be there and need to be present. So we need to come together. And that's why I value independent media, which CJ, you've largely introduced me to. You started me on that pathway of exploring more of this independent media. I had exposure to it in other places, but we need Cornel West. We need his presence, because he does speak also of some of the Black American experience. And regardless of how affluent his father was, regardless of how affluent he is, he's worked in a system that set him apart and set him on an uphill battle. And we need more people that have that awareness to bring those of us that are in the downtrodden stages, which is most people in our country at this point that earn a steady wage of a certain amount. Minimum wage doesn't support anybody. But so we need that representation. We need to be doing precinct organizing. We need to be taking these stories, taking the propaganda from mainstream media to the people to say, hey, the diet you've consumed is not real facts. Here's more options to look at and to learn and to advance your understanding.
That is a great point. Several points actually you're making. So I think it's up to us, three of us here, RBN, everybody that supports Cornel West. We have to be the ones to start the push to get people sign up. So we have to do something about it. Maybe get a graphic created. But we have to start to push people to get signed up that's green. I mean, that's what the next push in this step is, in this movement is that. So to your point. But Anthony, did you also want to chime in on anything here before we get back to the video? Anything she said?
Yeah, great stuff, Michelle. And let's just emphasize in a positive way, because I know it's so easy to feel defeated in this sick, inhumane system. But let's look at it from an exciting and a positive framework. We have the opportunity to get a whole bunch of people involved in walking up and down streets and getting signatures to put Greens on the ballot. Because most Americans, regardless of their political affiliation, agree that more choice is better than less choice. When you get down to it, forget what's on the mainstream media. So we've got this great opportunity. Anybody can do it. And if you can't do the physical going door to door, maybe you can make phone calls. Maybe you could there's something everybody can do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the disability conversation enters here. What is it you're capable of? And I love that, that whole framing of marks from each according to their abilities to each according to their needs. The idea is everybody can contribute something, and we should value every contribution, no matter what it is. We're not measuring it. Maybe you have 1 day a month to give up. Maybe you have 1 hour. It doesn't matter. Maybe you're not mobile, but you can make phone calls. Whatever it is, we all can do something. And I think it's inspirational because Bernie Sanders had us. I remember the excitement and thinking, what can I do? And then we know what happened with that movement. It kind of just was not useful anymore and it went away. Well, those people are still there and there's more of us now. So I just feel excited that we should always frame it positively. We can have a huge effect on what goes on in our lives and the lives of others, getting involved in any capacity we can, getting Greens on the ballots, getting involved, as CJ and Nick always talk about what's going on locally, see what's happening locally. So I think there's a big opportunity to have a wave of involvement we haven't seen in a very long time in this country.
Great point again. And let's let this video finish out a little less than 3 minutes. Let's listen.
And killed innocent people. Those are wrong. They had Tuesday meetings at night deciding who to kill. And too often it was innocent folk fighting terrorism. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, so we're at war with combatants. That's a separate thing. Innocent people are being killed. And they lied about it, denied it, and then later on it's true. So that if you're going to be president, no matter what color, and you're going to be head of the empire, either tell people the truth about various kinds of things you're doing. And there are certain things you can choose. He didn't choose to hit mass incarceration head on. The new Jim Crow. We got a black president and you're not dealing with the new Jim Crow. That's why you got a Black Lives Matter movement under a black president. Because the younger generation said, wait a minute, these police are doing us in, and we got black president. We got black attorney general. We got black Homeland Security. Black faces in high places doesn't always translate into black empowerment of poor and working people. We had to bring critique to bear. And that's exactly what I did during the Obama administration. You remember Tavis Smiley and I having poverty tours.
Yes.
I wanted to talk about poverty. I wanted to talk about mass incarceration.
So again, this is, as you can see, this is the Stephen A. Smith show. This is like a regular show. It's not just sports. He does, I don't know if he has Sean Hannity or if he went on Sean Hannity's show, but he does regular people on the show. So that was a lot. He has a lot of people ears listening, and for Cornel West to get all of that in about Obama is great. And let's continue.
We got a black president. Let's show up at the jails and say what's wrong. And give your arguments as to why you want to preserve this and do away with this, reform this.
Right. Well, I did see Barack Obama show up at a couple of jails. I think one was televised where he did that.
So you have the black capitalist class, of course, who coming in to swoop in and say something. Oh, let me try to balance this conversation out. Here's something positive about Obama. But then Cornel West says, hold on. There's another detail about that you're saying, Stephen A.
When I think
He
about
had that little
what,
meeting his 7th year with nonviolent offenders.
Okay.
And
okay, I see what you're saying, and
So he said, hold on. That photo op was nonviolent offenders in his 7th year on an 8-year reign. So let's not go overboard there, Stephen A. And he has to admit. Yeah,
And
he knew.
He knew exactly when it happened, what part of the presidency, and that's why, like, they've never dealt with the Cornel West before like this because they're not used to it. They're used to being able to shut the people down and be like, he did that thing. I saw him go to a prison, and people go, "Oh, no." Cornel West is like, "No, I'm not having this. Here's what really happened," and they don't know what to do.
Yeah, and because of their level of respect for him, when he retorts, they have to acknowledge he makes a point. Yeah. Like he just did here. He's like, yeah. Okay, that's true. So like because that's just out of a respect. But let's continue, and then we can give our final comments in a second.
And then obviously, and then when he bailed out Wall Street, you're thinking about the economy because he came into office during a recession, and obviously the country was falling apart. So I think that was a forgivable position for him to take because you obviously was in a state of emergency. You didn't inherit everything when it was peachy clean and was smooth sailing. You inherit.
So again, you have the black capitalist class who are trying to come and play Captain Save 'em for Obama because he's saying, you got to give him a pass on this. He's saying even more. He's trying to say and push him back.
Inherited a problem, okay, under the George W. Bush administration. I'm saying I got to take that into consideration as well.
That's exactly the moment where you got Wall Street against the wall. You can bring leverage to bear so that poor and working people could get more concessions. If you just bail them out, they come out stronger with no accountability. And what happens? Black middle class.
You see how he is able, because of his, or maybe it's because I'm gonna assume because of his intellect, or because he's done these interviews, he has the ability to swat down these sort of typical talking point retorts to his line of thinking, that he swats it down with something that's logical, where even his opponent, in this case is Stephen A, is his opponent in the conversation at least, has to acknowledge that's the point, and he does so with the shaking of his head. I'm trying to get through the video. It says 30 more seconds. Let's see what else he says here.
That's lose 58% of our wealth. Why? Because most of our wealth in our homes. We lost our homes because of that. It was the homeowners that had to bear the burden. So I would have said, hey, we understand there were a number of things that he wanted to do that he couldn't, but you don't punt on second down. You punt on the fourth down. You push it as far as you can go. You don't go to Wall Street and say, I will protect you.
And that's what and that's what you would have
all been committing crimes against these people, predatory lending. You're going to be punished. And then I'm going to extract some kind of concessions out of you.
Last question.
To me,
So that's one good clip. And I think there's believe it or not, there is a more substantive clip, but I might be saying that word wrong. Substantive clip. I saw. Where did I see that?
I just love, if I could just say that he said,
Yeah, go ahead.
Second down to Stephen A. Smith. It's like, and that's what Cornel can do because I'm on a first name basis. I've never met him. That's what Dr. West can do because he is an academic and surely can talk in academic language, but he also is a regular person and knows how to communicate with people. And I just thought that was beautiful.
I really agree too that Cornel West in his interviews that he's had up to this point have really shown his core kind of connection with the people. And I think that's an important variable to remember, is just how he stays grounded in what people need. He allows the question and he reframes it back where he needs to reframe it, which is, who does this policy or this positive impact negatively? And let's remember who it impacts negatively. You know, and that's kind of speaking again back to the propaganda machines, you know.
Absolutely. And let me play the second clip. This is a lot shorter. And I skipped past Stephen A talking just in case. But let me set up the clip. It says Cornel West asked why he didn't encourage another Democrat to run instead of running for president. Why somebody else? Why not somebody else? Basically, is what Stephen A. Smith is asked him here. So let's listen to his answer.
Party and the neo-fascists in the Republican Party. All Republicans are not neo-fascists, and all folks.
Hang on, we may have to listen to this question here. So let's hope fair use will apply.
Look at somebody like a Kamala Harris. Why not encourage?
And the reason is because of I forget now. I remember it's the two names he uses, and Gavin Newsom and Kamala Harris. So I must play the asking of the question in order for this to really have its effect. So let's listen.
Why not look at somebody like a Kamala Harris? Why not encourage somebody like a Gavin Newsom or somebody along those lines, the governor of California, and try to partner with them? Why didn't you decide to go that route?
Because what happens is that the milquetoast Democratic Party.
So, you know, we're thinking like, what? Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom? That's our reaction. But try to put ourselves in what his audience, and this is why I'm saying, in the same way, we're like, what? Like, they may be thinking the same thing when they heard that about Obama, which is a good thing that they're hearing that. It's a good thing that they're hearing, his audience is hearing that. So I'm hoping also when he brings up these two pop culture names, Gavin Newsom and Kamala Harris, that these people who may not even understand how these are two terrible neoliberals, Cornel West will be able to explain that to this large audience that may have never heard such critiques of these two people. So that's why I think this is important. So let's listen.
And the neo-fascists in the Republican Party. All Republicans are not neo-fascists, and all folks who vote for Trump are not neo-fascists. 1 out of 8 of those who voted for Trump voted for Brother Bernie Sanders. So we have to recognize how diverse his social base is, but he himself was a neo-fascist. But the Republican and Democratic parties are parasitic on each other because they both get the same big money from the big donors and big benefactors. See, they both are tied to military expansion. You notice anytime you have debates about the defense spending, you get bipartisanship. They're supposed to be at each other's throats, but no. You get bipartisanship when those kind of issues come along. Meaning what? Meaning that both parties are parties of the corporate elite. And if we don't break that, then the neo-fascists will win, because sooner or later Republicans are going to win. And the Democrats are just a postponement of it. The Democrats are a caretaker administration, and sooner or later the fascists will win. You don't defeat fascism by going milquetoast.
This is what his audience has never heard. They heard all the propaganda about fascism, Trump, scare. What they haven't heard is them saying voting for Biden is not going to fix the fascism. That's what the audience has never heard, in my opinion, or maybe have rarely heard, which is why, to your point earlier, Professor, his candidacy is so important because he is so roundly respected. He is allowed to come on these places that he's not a normal. You're not going to see Marianne Williamson on the Stephen A. Smith show. You're not going to see RFK Jr. on the Stephen A. Smith show. This is the point why his candidacy could be, if to Michelle's point, if we can get the right numbers, if we can get the volunteers, if we can get the right everything, this could be game changing because of who he is. He is uniquely perfectly set for this moment to be the candidate to push the Green Party. Like if we're gonna write, if in 20 years we're like the Green Party has solidified itself as a standard third party, meaning now it's three parties we're picking from and it's standard that we're picking from, this is the candidate, in my opinion, that's going to be sort of the root of that happening. This is the candidate that's going to sort of make that happen. Now I'll let it play some more, and then I'll let both of you comment all of what is being said, because there's only 30 seconds left. So let's let it play, and then I'll go to Michelle first, and then Professor.
You defeat fascism by going directly into their face. That's like Martin Luther King Jr. depending on the moderate whites to break the back of American apartheid. If he had depended solely on them, you and I, living in the South, I know you from Hollis, Queens.
That's right.
That's a cool thing. Born in the Bronx,
right.
That's a beautiful thing. But I'm a Southern brother who grew up in California, right? Born in Oklahoma. That American apartheid would still be in place, man. You got to hit it head on with vision, passion, courage, and a love of the people.
Vision, passion, courage, and a love of the people. Michelle, what say you about what Cornel says in this video about why not Gavin Newsom? And I'm going to turn my camera off again. And why not Gavin Newsom and Kamala Harris?
You know, I can say a lot about Gavin Newsom and Kamala Harris, but I want to kind of target a little bit more the realities of two corporate parties and the difference of the Greens being a non-corporate funded party. You know, and this is an important point that people don't focus on very much. You know, when you have a corporation electing people, you have them electing people in what will support the corporations. You know, Democrats elect Democrats, people that are going to support the Democratic Party. Republicans elect Republicans that are going to support the Republican Party, going to support also the corporations that back these parties. So with Gavin Newsom, he's heavily funded, I believe, by the oil industry. He's also funded by the healthcare industry. So we will never get healthcare for all if those industries are the supporters of those candidates. So this is why we need a people-led, people-powered party, which technically the Green Party has achieved over many years. We've not gone back. Some individual Greens may have changed their course and accepted corporate funding because it's hard to run against a corporation. You know, I go out and I worry about the power my government has over me as a business in my local area. You know, my city and county governments, what they deem is correct, they have a lot of power to make that happen. And it doesn't matter who's in office, that power is codified by the laws and the policies that have been created historically over time. So Cornel West is bringing up this corporate reality and this gap in everybody's knowledge, I will say, because we've been spoon-fed that we vote blue no matter who. We've been spoon-fed that you're either a Democrat or a Republican in America, and supporting anything else is wrong, you know, or if you support something extra, you're going to get the wrong candidate elected. You know, there are policies in place that allowed these people to be as toxic as they have been to us. There are things that were in place that allowed Trump to maneuver in ways that Trump maneuvered, and he harmed a lot of people. Biden, equally so, has harmed a lot of people. Gavin Newsom, while you can mitigate that harm somewhat with some of his policies, woo-woo policies and things like that, you still don't get equity at the baseline of everything, because what you have is corporations getting more funding, corporations gaining in wealth, corporations gaining in power. You get what AOC brought up, which is we need to go away from the regulations because these businesses need to make more money. You know, and that's kind of the crux of AOC's clip that we did earlier when we were talking about all of that. You know, and I think that until we realize the power and influence of money, and the power of influence of these corporate entities that were made into, given a personhood via Citizens United, that were given power and influence in our government in ways that has been like on steroids of late, we don't realize what we're fighting against. And we're not fighting against Biden. We're not fighting against Trump. We're not fighting against Gavin Newsom and Kamala Harris. What we're fighting against is the power that is and the power that will be, depending on who's the candidate that's actually pushing these policies and pushing the agenda. But we still go back to needing people power. So we need the people in the room. We need the pathways to everybody having their base needs met. Until we reach that level where base needs are met in the United States, we're fighting a battle that is uphill and heavy and scary. And until you and I can pay our rent and know that we don't have to worry about the roof over our head, I'm using you as a euphemistic you here, not necessarily.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But until we can guarantee we can go to the doctor and have a healthcare need met. We can have our food needs met. We can have healthy food needs met. Not a bunch of white foods that are bread and white white rice and maybe a little bit of protein thrown in for extra, but until we reach that point, we have to really struggle, and we need those people that can struggle and do this. And I think Cornel West is positioned in a way that he can kind of carry this mantle forward and create some important change.
Yes, and Anthony, same sort of question. What say you about this second clip of Cornel West basically explaining why not Gavin Newsom and Kamala Harris, but he explains it in a way to talk about the corruption of the Democratic and Republican Party, how they're equally corrupt?
Yeah, I think he's really well positioned, Dr. West is, to have these conversations. He knows his stuff. And, I guess for people in our world who swim in our waters, we hear that, like, what about Kamala Harris? As if Stephen A. Smith was just thinking, oh, you just don't like Biden. Well, how about this other Biden? Who's
right.
And who's a woman and who's brown? Because she is a woman, she is brown, and she is younger. But she's still Biden. I mean, they're still working for the same people. I think he did a really good job. And look, as there were some complaints about Cornel West's or critiques of Cornel West's performance on CNN a couple of weeks back. And I understand them. Listen, he's just starting. So he is going to, even though he's an accomplished communicator, he's going to learn as time goes on. He gets better and better each time, honing that message, how to target the audience you're speaking to, and to let them know, listen, this, and he uses this phrase, milk toast. These guys are weak. They're feckless. And he's pointing it out. So I just think he's doing great and drawing a distinction, because it's going to have to keep happening, where West is going to have to shoulder the burden of explaining on our behalf to the establishment, people like Stephen A. Smith, why would there be a need for a third party at all? I mean, that's really the crux of why they're having him on. Like, why would they don't understand why he's doing this? Why don't you just get another Democrat? So that's where they're coming from. So every conversation he has, at least at the beginning phase of this, is going to be an education about why we need to work outside of this two-party system and why it's important. One quick point that I think would be helpful if I were, able to get some advice through to the candidate, Dr. West, it would be, and he's referenced it, but let's really lean into those 100 million people that didn't vote in 2016. Let's lean into the 1.7 million people who left the president line blank. Let's lean into those. So when they start saying, well, don't you think you're going to hurt Biden? West can say, listen, 100 million people didn't vote 4 years ago. Yes, we had record turnout last time around, but it was a very weird situation with COVID and everything and Trump. we're going back to more like 2016 and 2024. We need to reach out to these voters, ask them the question, why do you think 100 million people just don't vote? And yes, there's accessibility issues, but that's not most of that 100 million. And one last thing I just want to notice, there was a super chat that came up where the person said the Greens are aligned with the pro-Ukraine issue. And I just want to throw that out. That is not true. We're pro everybody. But as far as pro-Ukraine proxy war, Cornel West is firmly against that. And I just want to make that clear for those who may have seen that super chat. You all can talk about more of that if you want.